proposals coming out of the Attorney General's Commission on Pornography was the possibility of establishing a citizens' action group to monitor newsstands, convenience and video stores, and cable networks for allegedly obscene material. Now, some have referred to this proposal as a manifesto for a public sex spy network, or the return of the porn squad. Today, an update on pornography with my guest, Philip Nobley. He's the writer and editorial director of Forum magazine. Barry Lynn, legislative counsel for the Washington office of ACLU. Brad Curl, president of the National Christian Association. And Kim Clark, who's with the Feminists Against Pornography. And it's a pleasure to have all of you here. After reading this material, it appears now the Meese Commission did not really have hard scientific fact about the impact of pornography on society. Am I correct about this? They heard a lot of emotional stories and all that. But
absolutely correct. The Meese Commission wasn't interested in science. It was merely an effort, I think, basically to overturn the sex revolution.
So we don't know at this point the impact of pornography on society. Is that the harmful effects of all of this?
Oh, absolutely. Nobody knows. But the Meese Commission doesn't care, really, because they are trying to outlaw sin, basically, not pornography.
But Brad, what is your view about this? Do you think that you need scientific fact, or can you go with just emotional stories?
Well, there are many respected social scientists who say there is harm to pornography. Dr. Dolph Zillman of the University of Indiana, Dr. Jennings Bryan
pornography
of
or
Houston.
Some kind of pornography?
Well, there are many ways that pornography is used so that I think it is harmful. One is that with this tremendous flood of pornographic imagery in our society, you have more and more cases of children abusing other children after seeing this material. In fact, I talk with a great many child psychologists and social workers and people who work in emergency rooms who are horrified by the instances of 10, 12-year-old boys sexually molesting 4, 6, 8-year-old little girls and boys because copying the imagery that they're seeing on X-rated video, following the instruction they're getting from dial-a-porn, looking at the magazines that Mr. Nobley produces, etc.
I knew you were ready here, Barry. We'll sit back.
Sure. Well, let me just clarify something. Sure, there are ways in which pornography is used, and people who use it in a way that is designed to victimize someone else, it can and should be remedied by the criminal law and by civil sanctions. If somebody uses pornography in a workplace environment so that a woman is harassed out of her job, she can use Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and other approaches to get a remedy, not against the publisher of a magazine, who certainly never intended it to be used in that way, but against the actual victimizer. The issue of science, I think, needs to be disposed of because it's an important one. What Mr. Zillman shows in his studies is that people, when they are massively exposed to certain kinds of pornography, temporarily develop bad attitudes about women. And I don't think that we can suspend the First Amendment, our Constitution, just because imagery, no matter how offensive it might be, gives people unpleasant ideas or attitudes, because the remedy for those unpleasant actions or unpleasant things that are going through your head is to design affirmative, alternative imageries.
Education that would counter that? That's what you're talking about. And
of course that happens. And in fact, Mr. Zillman and others do those after they do their own experiments. They do counter experiments, debriefing experiments, where they show the same students that saw the bad imagery more positive views of women and more positive views about the reality of rape in our society. And those kids turn out to be far more understanding than they were before they entered any of his experiments.
Now, that's kind of ridiculous. So isn't it? Here they're loading kids with imagery that they say makes them have very bad feelings towards other people. In August, Carol, there was a news feature, 2 15-year-old boys viewed an R-rated gang rape, I Spit on Your Grave, very explicit gang rape, inciting gang rape, and they went out and gang raped the neighboring 12-year-old girl and murdered her. And murdered her and said they were copying.
What about the adults who want to see that? I mean, do they have a right to see this?
Well, I don't think that
I'd like to clarify our perspective on this. I think the feminist perspective lends a lot to this. We think that this is a false dichotomy, okay? That you don't have to be simply pro-censorship or pro-pornography. There is a middle of the road. Sexually explicit material per se is not the problem. Sexuality is not dangerous. Sexist violence and exploitation in the media and in the society as a whole is the problem. I don't think we can continue to understand that in this society we have, on the one hand, a huge industry, from hardcore pornography right on down to mainstream woman slasher films such as Body Double, and rock videos that glorify sexual assault against
Which are
women.
not rated. At least the general public can see most of the things that you're talking about.
Exactly. You can see these in your neighborhood theater. I think we can't go on to say that we can continue to support this huge industry and also understand this fact, which nobody can dispute, that women are afraid to walk out at night. I mean, we need to get this discussion on a level of what is happening to women.
Now, you're saying you're not for censorship, but it seems that you're into education. At least
Absolutely. Feminists Against Pornography has been very active within the last 6 years. We do a lot of community education. We do picketing. We do demonstrations. We believe that social change is the way to deal with this.
All right, let me try for a phone call. Go right ahead, please. You're on the air. Good morning. Good morning. You're on the air. Oh.
Yes. Hello. I can hardly hear you, but I wanted to say that, you know, I understand where some magazines are more pornographic than others and so forth, and I don't buy those magazines. But the point I want to make is, isn't it every person's right to make that decision as to what they buy and don't buy? And if they don't want to buy the more explicit magazines, they don't. If they want to buy, you know, whatever they want to buy, they can. And you know, we're not censoring.
But you're moving into an era now where you've got a commission with a proposal that all that material, period, I would imagine, would be banned. And that's where we're going to take a break and come back and talk about that.
That's not quite it.
Join us in the studio Thursday and talk one-on-one with controversial Civil Rights Commission Chairman Clarence Pendleton. For free reservation, call 364-3760. That's 364-3760.
You're going to say
all right, we're talking about an update on pornography here. We were getting into this commission, this idea of a citizens group, and I was expressing some concern about this. To me, it smacks of vigilante groups, and I don't know who would be a part of it. I don't know whose standards would be used to judge what would be considered obscene.
For instance, Carol, the ACLU was originally founded to protect the little guy against abuse of power. That's what we're talking about here. There are citizens groups growing up all over the country who are concerned about abuse of power of an $8 billion pornography industry. And I'm really dismayed that Barry Lynn, representing the ACLU, is the chief apologist, the chief defender of this $8 billion pornography industry, so that my kids and your kids...
Why are you amazed?
Well, because they're not protecting the little guy anymore. What about us who would like a decent moral environment for our children? They're not talking about us anymore. They're talking about protecting the right of the pornographers to flood our communities with this filth.
No, Brad.
And I think we're fed up with it.
Well, I know you're fed up with it, but the point is a lot of people are fed up with a whole lot of things. And what the ACLU has always done is to defend the right of anybody to produce the ideas and the images that they choose. Now, as it happens when I go around the country, I find a lot of good liberals who are convinced that there must be some way to get religious programming off of television. Can't we do something? And I always tell them the same thing I'd say to Brad now. You cannot use the sources and the powers of government to remove the ideas that you find offensive, whether they're about sex or religion or politics or anything else. And when you start going down the road of encouraging citizens to picket and seek to
That's
get
the best American
books
tradition, to picket.
Let me finish. Seek to picket and have as the result of that the removal of books from the shelves of stores or libraries, or to remove programming from television, I think you have done something very unwise and something that is a great danger to the whole concept of free expression.
Carol, in the last 30 months, 20,000 family drugstores and convenience stores have voluntarily pulled the magazines out. I think those store owners have a right to do that.
But they seem to be in a minority. There are other places where they haven't.
But it's a tremendous trend. Just in the last 90 days, 10,000 stores have pulled the magazines out voluntarily. It's voluntary.
We need to remember that we're not just talking about personal distaste. Whether I like it and Barry doesn't is not really the issue. The issue is the harm. And pornography is one of the institutions that contribute to the fact that women are experiencing sexual violence on a very real level every day in their life.
Of course, there's no evidence for that, Kim, but though it suits your position.
There is quite a bit of evidence to suggest that.
Well, the Pornography Commission found no such evidence. The Pornography Commission was truly an exercise in hypocrisy, because what they did was they paraded 8 out of 10 witnesses, and that's what their whole operation was based on. testimony of witnesses. They were anti-pornography.
But
They
is
were
it amazing?
All right, but let me ask Philip this, though. All right, let's say that people do have, grown-ups have a right to buy this material, see this material. But how do you protect, a parent protect themselves or their children when, for example, they can pick up the phone and their kid can find the number and dial and get some pornographic statement? I mean, that's something that you can't, you can close out a lot of things out of your house. But how do you protect yourself against that?
Well, one of the simplest ways, and what the 1970 Commission recommended, that this Commission refused even to consider, is sex education. The same people like Brad who criticize us for educating kids sexually refuse to have their own school systems have sex education. That to me shows the moral hypocrisy of this anti-Christian crusade against pornography.
Let me try for a phone call. Go right ahead, please. You're on the air. Good morning. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello. Great show. I just wanted to say hello.
You're on the air. Go right ahead,
Yes,
please. Turn the volume down and speak directly into
Isn't
the
there
phone.
a problem with defining pornography? I mean, haven't they...
All right, that is one of the major problems that everybody is faced with. Yes.
And haven't they tried to define it before?
All right, we're going to have to go on. I think we've got the gist of it. The problem with defining
The problem
this.
in defining it is that it means whatever people don't like, they then call pornographic, and that's pretty much what this commission did. But you know, you asked a very important question, and I think Philip gave part of the answer. What do you do to protect the kids? And areas like dial-up porn or cable television program that's just a little too sexy for what you think your kids should be watching.
A little too sexy, a dial-up porn message?
There are lockout devices that cost $5 that can be used to make sure that your kids can't go into your house and dial those messages, or in fact can be used to block out the cable television program you don't like. But does Brad think that's a sensible middle ground, normal solution so that adults can do what they want and kids no? No, he ridicules those proposals because I guess his kids aren't worth the $5. My kids are. I've got 2, and when I want to protect them, I will protect them. And if it costs me $5, Brad,
that's a
let's
silly
do it.
argument. It's a silly argument.
Are you opposed to
It's
that?
a silly argument because the lock boxes don't work. And the other thing is,
Of course
there's
they work.
this idea of parental. Well, there's one key that fits all the TV lock boxes, and any kid with a little ingenuity can build his own descrambler to get the
Any kid can build a descrambler.
Well, that's true.
What is
you
it,
know,
Star Wars?
No, any kid with a little ingenuity can. They're doing it
So
all
if
over the
the
country.
parent wants
But here's
it-
the point, Carol, is that we just don't have the kids today with the parental guidance. The parental filter that Barry talks about doesn't exist for more and more kids. The parents are working, the parents are divorced, the single parent
So is this
home.
citizens group going to serve as the parent?
No, but I think we have to understand that millions of our kids are getting these messages and getting this imagery, and it's impacting their lives, and they don't have parents around to help them sort it out, and that is a real problem.
We're going to take a break. We come back. I'm going to let Kim, because she's been trying to get this point in here. We're going to take a break and come right back.
Attention all good-looking men. Here's your chance to become an MGF magazine model. If you think you've got what it takes, send 2 different photos along with height and clothing size, a short bio, and a statement in 50 words or less why you want to be a model in MGF magazine to the Carol Randolph Show Male Model Search. 3 finalists will be chosen to appear on TV June 4th to model the latest in menswear. The winner will be a model in an upcoming issue of MGF. Don't wait. Send in your entry today.
Welcome back. We'll take a phone call. Go right ahead, please. You're on the air.
Yeah. First, I'd like to say I am a Christian, but most important, I think, you know, with the freedom and everything that everybody wants to have, if they want to have magazines that badly, they can have them sent to their own homes or private homes and get them mailed directly. I think it's a lot better to have it out of the stores and, you know, have the society standard raised rather than, you know, lowered. If they want them that bad, they can have them sent to the home.
Well, what about being able to go to a video store and buy a XXX rated
I don't think
cassette?
they have that either.
They can do that? That's all right with you?
No, I don't think that's right either.
But if they want it in their home, how do they get it in their home?
There could be some other way that they could get it sent more directly.
Well, you know, two kids right in this area were incited by watching a gang rape videotape to gang rape and murder the neighboring 12-year-old girl.
Didn't you
so
know
it does.
that
So this idea that you know, that okay, if that guy over there in that house wants to do it, it's okay. There are things that are illegal. Obscenity is illegal in the United States. Now, things that are softcore pornography like Playboy are not illegal. So those things we have to control with public opinion. We have a right to lobby our store owners to say we would prefer that you not sell that kind of material in our neighborhood. Because our kids, even though I keep it out of my house...
Are you for zoning? Are you for the areas where you could go and buy these things if in fact a person wants it?
I think in general that pornography should be on the fringes of our culture, not in a place of honor.
What is the fringes of our culture?
Well, I think in the back alley. I don't think it should be in a place of acceptability.
Back alley.
I think
Not your back alley,
Yeah,
probably.
you know, the 7-Eleven stores, the 7-Eleven stores that have just thrown out my magazine also
Good, I think it
sell
was a great decision.
cigarettes, liquor. And by the way, liquor, you know, was identified as a greater contributor to sexual violence and sexual violence to women, Kim, by the Pornography Commission than pornography itself. But 7-Eleven tolerates now R-rated films because they're selling them. Is that next on the hit list, R-rated films?
Seems like it is.
Well, the softcore is legal,
I should have a
hardcore is
chance to
illegal.
get in here. Let's go right ahead with this
Yeah,
course.
feminists also share the concern about the Mies Commission that it might have too broad of a brush, specifically in terms of defining pornography. We don't think that pornography is synonymous with sexually explicit material. But, you know, I'd like you to imagine what the effect on blacks would be if they could go into stores all across the country and see under the heading of white entertainment depictions of themselves being lynched, being brutalized. What effect would that have on black self-image? How would that serve to reinforce and legitimize whatever bigotry already exists? You know, I think it's a little bit absurd for three men to sit around here. You know, you have the luxury of debating this on a very intellectual, abstract level. I don't. Women
Kim.
don't.
Wait a minute. Kim, so wait, let me ask you, what then are you saying that if a person wants to, suppose somebody does want erotic, and we're having problems with definition here, if women want to see some of these things, where do we draw the line? Is it the violence that you want eliminated out of this? Is it the bondage, the domination, that kind of thing? But sexually explicit material, you're saying, what?
Again, I think it's not just a question of my personal taste, okay? I may not like violence. I still do not want it to be censored, and I would fight if someone were going to try to censor that. I share that concern. FAP definitely believes in community education. We've been active in doing that for several years. I think we do need to, I think a harm has been identified. There's a lot of research. Women find the research more disturbing than Barry Lynn does, for good reason.
But I read the research, and I know quite a bit about what it says, and I simply do not know what research. We're talking about attitudinal change. We're talking about research that shows that once you show people a lot of pornography and then put them in a mock rape trial, that people with massive exposure do, in some instances, give lighter sentences than the other people in these essentially
desensitizing them to
well, that's what the theory is, but the fact is that in most of these experiments, even the people who give the lower rape sentences are giving lower rape sentences than are actually given by real juries all around the United States. In other words, the impact of this stuff is not measurable, it's not significant, it does not comport with what I think all of us are worried about in the real world. What you do with college kids in a laboratory is not a good reflection of what happens in the real world. And Brad's examples, for example, of the copycat killers, I certainly would not dispute that there are some examples that he can find and I can find of copycat crimes related to pornography. I can find you more copycat crimes, however, related to television programming and detective movies. Sometimes some people out there get triggered to do terrible things by the imagery they see in all the media around them. And I don't think we can suspend the First Amendment just because of the effect that it has on the most deviant person in the audience who sees it. Otherwise, we'll be sitting around in dark rooms, never able to look at anything.
Again, Carol, again, I'd like to go right ahead, please. You're on the air. Hello, you're on the air.
Okay. I must say that I think that the Reverend Barry Lynn needs to get down to constitutional brass tacks. It seems to me that what he is doing in arguing that somebody might misuse a law which permits people who are harmed by pornography to take action against those who hurt them is exactly the same argument that he rejects. when they talk about harm of pornography. He says that, gosh, somebody out there might misuse the law. Well, I think if he denies that we can have laws because somebody might misuse them or get the wrong decision, that he's really negating all law. There's another constitutional point that he really seems to be ignoring, and I think women are entitled to hear it. And that is that the First Amendment that he's so busy talking about does not apply to women. Carol Randolph has no guarantee of First Amendment rights. I don't have any guarantee of First Amendment rights because none of us has a 14th Amendment guarantee to equal protection of the law. That wasn't built into the Constitution. It wasn't acknowledged when the 14th Amendment was passed on behalf of all the rest of the men in this country who didn't have equal protection of the law.
All right, I'm going to have to interrupt you there.
Down by the
It's
country
hard to...
Okay, I'm going to a break here. You gave us a lecture on ERA. We'll take a break. We'll come right back.
Up to £1 a day and never gain it back. That's right. Join us in studio Wednesday for a special taping with Dr. Martin Catan, creator of The Rotation Diet, and find out how to shed those unwanted pounds and inches by June. For free reservations, call 364-3760. That's 364-3760.
Close out with some comments here and make some sense of it. I suggest that people become more informed and perhaps draw your own conclusions. You wanted to say something very quickly, Philip?
Very briefly. I wanted to point out how relative this whole debate is. Our president, Ronald Reagan's son, writes for a pornographic magazine. Ronald Reagan also invites porn stars to the White House.
Such as who?
Such as Clint Eastwood.
Why do you call Clint Eastwood a porn star?
Oh, because he stars in R-rated movies that are considered pornographic by people like Brad. You'll remember Tightrope. That was about a kinky cop. But yet, not only is Clint Eastwood elected mayor of his town, he's invited to the White House.
Well, the Supreme Court has ruled again and again that pornography is not covered by the First Amendment. And I think the fact that 80% of the people who testified at the Pornography Commission testified that they were harmed by pornography, because it's easy to find a lot of people who feel they're harmed
people weren't up there
by
to say that? How many individuals
an $8 billion industry.